Welcome back to another episode of Remember the Great Sports NBA 2K18 roster edits. Today we're going to focus on the New York Knicks, or New York Knickerbockers to be technical. So, to start out with, the NBA 2K18 does have a very strong lineup here for the Knicks. I only see a couple additions and subtractions, and there's a couple position change guys, that I feel are relevant as well. But we are not going to go through the starting lineup. I'm going to go and find the guys that I feel need to be replaced off the roster, and we will add two additional. The first guy that I feel needs to be eliminated from this roster is John Starks. Mr. Starks is a very good basketball player. However, being that you have Allan Houston and, let's see, where is he? Bernard King on the roster that pretty much play the same position. King is listed as a small forward. I feel that King can be listed as a shooting guard on this Knicks team, a small forward / shooting guard, so that eliminates the need for John Starks. The second person that I feel needs to go is Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson, again, is probably an all-time great on this team. However, when you have Earl the Pearl Monroe, Michael Ray Richardson, and Walt Frazier, you really don't need 4 point guards on the single team. So it's kind of a toss-up between Michael Ray Richardson and Mark Jackson. They both spent about the same amount of time in their careers as Knicks. So I guess if you're a fan over the other, I would say, keep one, eliminate the other. Again, Richardson was a good player, but on this team, he's probably about third or fourth on the depth chart when it comes to being the point guard. So, with that being said, stay with me and I will load the rosters and we will go from there. Alright, so here we are with the starting lineups of this team. There are a few adjustments that I made that I felt appropriate. Number one being sliding Bernard King as the shooting guard on this rotation ahead of Allan Houston. Allan Houston is a great New York Knick, don't get me wrong, but Bernard King is a far superior player. I feel Carmelo Anthony is pretty much slotted at the small forward position. The only other alternative I would suggest is moving Anthony to the power, to the number 4 position over Stoudemire, moving King back to the small forward, and moving Houston back into the starting lineup. This is my preference of alignment because I feel Amar'e Stoudemire is a very strong power forward to have in there. When you have Ewing, Anthony, King, and Frazier, Stoudemire is kind of more of a defensive rebounding specialist. Whereas I feel if you have Houston in the starting 5, all you have is 5 scorers. I mean, not that Ewing isn't a good rebounder, but you have 5 offensive options where I feel there's a little stronger defensive option there with the Stoudemire. Now again, this is a preference. There is another power forward that I did add to the team, a Hall of Famer, that you may want to slot ahead of Stoudemire even in the starting lineup, or you could even go as far as throwing Willis Reed in there at power forward if you prefer, but I prefer to keep Reed as my backup center. So, with that said, this is the starting 5, Frazier, King, Anthony, Stoudemire, Ewing. Off the bench, you have Willis Reed, Allan Houston, Dave DeBusschere, Earl the Pearl Monroe. And this is the first addition to the roster with the subtraction of Starks and Mark Jackson, and that is Hall of Famer Jerry Lucas. Jerry Lucas can be found on the game elsewhere. If you check the all-time Knicks team, I believe I'll just show it to you real quick. Lucas can be found on the 71-72 Knicks, as well as the next individual that I'm about to show you. We're going to move this back to where we're at here. So, Lucas can be found on that 71-72 Knicks. Lucas, as you can see, played for the Knicks. He was there for more than a season, just, past the 71-72 season as all this goes. But as you can see, his better years were with the Cincinnati Royals, basically, or the Sacramento Kings. But he was an integral part of the New York Knicks when they won their championship. So I find it important to have that Hall of Famer on this roster ahead of John Starks or Mark Jackson. Plus, it gives you another option at power forward over DeBusschere or Stoudemire. DeBusschere kind of is a small power forward. His numbers are pretty good, as he was a very good rebounder, 15 and 11 a game. However, being only 6'6", I feel that Stoudemire is the better fit for that position. And we're going to talk about another power forward, but I just don't think he's better than Jerry Lucas. He's good, but not Jerry Lucas good. So Michael Ray Richardson as another backup point guard. And this is the next addition to the lineup, and that is small forward Bill Bradley, or Senator Bill Bradley. He played at Princeton. He again was kind of the instant offense, the shooter on those Knicks teams back in the 70s. He's a Hall of Famer. I put him ahead of Mark Jackson and John Starks because he's in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think Mark Jackson or John Starks are ever going to be Hall of Famers. I mean, maybe they will be, but until then, I feel a Hall of Famer gets a nod over non-Hall of Famers. That rounds it out with Dick Barnett. Dick Barnett is an older player, from the 60s basically. He started out with the Lakers, but moved on to the Knicks and had some very formidable, years with the Knicks. And he's kind of a undersized forward / shooting guard type, but a good ball player to have off the bench. And that leads me to the reserves. These two are already your reserves on the team. Just bumped the camera there. Sorry about that. That leaves me to the reserves. Charles Oakley and Kristaps Porziņģis are already your reserves on the roster, so you don't have to make necessary changes. The only thing that I might suggest is if you're not a big Kristaps Porziņģis fan, meaning he's only been a Knick for 3 seasons now, I think he goes down as the all-time Knick. But being that he doesn't have the longevity of an Amar'e Stoudemire, Charles Oakley, Jerry Lucas, etc., you might consider putting him at the starting power forward position. I think as Porziņģis gets older, there won't be a discussion in a year or two of whether or not he needs to be the starting power forward on this team. But I'm talking about this in 2018, where we're at with Porziņģis. I don't think Porziņģis has passed Amar'e Stoudemire, on that list yet, but we're probably only a year or two away that he probably will. So, with that being said, I hope you agree with my options. I would say the only one that I'm kind of on the fence about is Michael Ray Richardson. I would say if you prefer Mark Jackson over him, that's an option. If you like John Starks over him, that's an option. If I'm, overlooking another Knicks player that you may prefer over Michael Ray Richardson, that might be an option. I feel that maybe he's, he belongs on the team, but when you already have 3 other point guards, it's kind of like, do you need a guy that only played there for 4 seasons? So that's my thought process on this. I guess you only have 2 point guards at that point. So obviously with this starting lineup, you have a good team. What you should consider is the coach, and the coach is Red Holzman. And again, this image is horrible, so I will show his image here, even though it's kind of small to see. But Red Holzman was the coach of the Knicks during the 1970s, in the 60s when they were very successful. Brought the last championship to the Knicks. So, very knowledgeable, old-school basketball coach, which would be the perfect fit for coaching this all-time Knicks team. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you agree with my starting lineups and some of the roster changes. Again, this is up to your discretion, however you want to play as a fan. Thanks for watching my video, and stay tuned next time, and I look forward to your comments below. Thanks.